All
Uh,
right.
yeah, let's get started.
Sounds good. We're
Okay,
ready.
so we're getting started. So, welcome to the Counselor for Computing Spring 2020 coaching call. So, we wanted to have this coaching call really talk about doing some next steps at this point. So, we want to just bring in some of our national friends to talk about really after you've done a Counselor for Computing training, what are some things that you can do to carry the work forward? And we wanted to do so that could be something like inspirational and capture all those different counseling voices while with our Pennsylvania team, particularly coming off of National School Counselors Week. So let's get started. So to get started again, as many of you know, I'm Steve Sharp. I'm a middle school counselor here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Next up is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sean Myers. Sean, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Sean Myers. I'm a school counselor here in Georgia. I'm in what's called a performance learning center, and I'm in the alternative school as well. So we have about 50 students that I work with, high need students. So glad to be here.
Next, the queen herself, the slayer of school counseling, Allie Dean.
You flatter me. Hi, I'm Allie Dean. I'm a high school counselor, I work in an alternative school as well. My caseload is always changing. Definitely like very high needs population. I also work with the Career and Technology Academy, which is our CTE program that we have in Calvert County, and I'm in Maryland.
Sounds good. And then the rest of the team who's on the call, why don't you holler out real quick?
It's Dana from Penn Manor here in Lancaster.
I'm Kelsey Parks, elementary school counselor in Connellsville,
I'm
Pennsylvania.
Kelsey. I'm a grad student at Millersville.
Cool. So we wanted to give everyone a chance tonight. You've been hearing from Steve and I recently, so we wanted to give you a chance to talk to some other counselor for computing champions in other areas, and to give a little bit of background about what they were doing after their first counselor C4C training. So yeah, Sean and Allie, could you tell us a little bit about where you are for counselors for computing and your involvement with that?
Yeah, so right now, I think about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, I gave 2 presentations to one to Auburn University and then another one to Southern Alabama to grad students, which was really great. I think grad students have this opportunity to explore computer science, and they're hungry. I felt like they were hungry and excited, so which energized me as well. So that's kind of what I did in the past couple of weeks. But in the past, I've worked with students and just really encouraged them in their path in computer science, and really just wanted to give them a taste and an opportunity for computer science.
And here in Maryland, earlier this year, we did 2 one-day counselor trainings, which was really exciting. And we're working on planning more. We're trying to get some multi-day stuff happening over the summer, trying to get some CPD credits for our counselors who attend. Also, after coming back from the ASCA national conference, all of the counselors in my county that attended, we did some specific career presentations within our county, really emphasizing those computing careers, and we really got a chance to share with everyone in our county a lot of really valuable information about what we're doing with counselors for computing. And I've been using it a lot with my alternative students because they have that required tech credit, and a lot of times they don't have a lot of motivation to kind of give computer science a try. And so I've been using a lot of like the CS First from Google and things like that to kind of get them interested and energized about just like giving computer science a try. So.
Yeah, so Allie, speaking of that, and you mentioned that your students have a required tech credit at your school. So could you share a little bit about what is going on with computer science in Maryland, and maybe you can throw in then like what differs at your school?
Yeah, so I think the state of Maryland on paper is doing really well for being, and I'll kind of explain why, like on paper, but then in actuality, I don't know how great it's doing. You know, it's required in every county that students complete a tech credit. It's required to have a tech credit. They can do either a Foundations of Technology and Engineering course or a computer science course. So that alone means that you're going to have at least one computer science class in every school in the county. And then we also have a number of completer programs that students can do. Instead of a foreign language, they do 4 credits of a computer science program as a career pathway. And that's part of what I've kind of been advocating for in our CTE program, is making sure that more and more students are knowing about this CTE pathway. Because I find that like a lot of people aren't knowing about it. And so it's certainly not for lack of access. I mean, it's written into COMAR, which is our standards in the state of Maryland for education. They can even use their computer science course as a math credit. And in Maryland, we have to have 4 years of math. But then a lot of counselors don't know that a computer science course can be a math course. They don't know that you can give an AP computer science course to your high flyers for their tech credit, and just understanding the different ways that you can work computer sciences into that. And that's the same working in my alternative school with the higher risk students, or whether you're at like the magnet school or the career school or whatever school you're at. Every single school has to have this technology piece to it. But I think that we still have a ways to go in making sure that we teach counselors how to talk about it and how to advise and to steer their students into those programs. And we have a lack of teachers. I will say that too. A lack of computer science teachers. But we have lack of all teachers right now.
John, can you talk to us a little bit about what's going on in Georgia?
Yeah, so just to piggyback, you know, computer science does count as a foreign language and as math. And it's interesting you pointed that out, because some counselors don't realize about that math portion. And it's just, you just got to echo that thing and just put it out there. And also the foreign language is kind of scary. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to put a student in this computer science and I know they need 2 years or 2 semesters of a foreign language, but it's doable. It can be done. There's a push for STEM schools here. That's the big theme right now. But what I really enjoy is a lot of our colleges are pushing and connecting with our schools, like our high schools, and pushing robotics to get them into their colleges. So they're partnering with our high schools. For example, we just had a robotics competition last week at CSU, which is Columbus State University, and they just started a robotics program on a bachelor's level. So they are highly motivated in our area to really boost computer science. And we're also near Fort Benning, and there's been some statements of saying that Fort Benning will become the robotics capital of the United States. So you'll see what I'm finding is there are a lot of outside entities like the universities in Fort Benning that is highly interested in our schools. And that's been a good push for us.
So a lot of the themes I've heard is just after you have been done that leaving, you've been trying to provide more information as far as peer-to-peer education through conferences, whether on the state level or on a local level. In addition to that, I hear the grad student engagement. I hear that there's been a higher initiative on the state level for both public and private partnership. I also hear at the same point some of the direct work that you've been doing with your students in addition to that, whether it be the direct instruction, whether it be shifting your advising practices in addition to that. In what other ways do you feel like after you went to your C4C summits, what were some other things that changed for you?
For me, I was more open to engage my students in this at the time, this new field for me as a counselor, because before then, I didn't see the connection between computer science and a counselor. But after I went to my PD, I was like, it makes sense that we are the ones that can expose our students. So, I just became very motivated either to guide my students into that path or just to give them exposure, whether it was through uh, our code or just sitting down with them and talking to them, let them get on the computer and maybe play with a free program in Linux or something like that. It was just exposure, and I felt brave enough to take those steps. And I don't think that would have happened without the program. It wouldn't have. I would have just said, well, that's for a techie person. And then that helped me to realize that it's not necessarily you have to be a techie person. You just have to be passionate about your students and capitalize on that. And for me, all counselors are passionate. It's just finding that way to make it happen.
Sean, can you talk? I know we talked about before a little bit about, was it the Patriot Club?
Yeah. So this is interesting. So I came back and I just found out that there was a cybersecurity club called Cyber Patriots, and I just decided to do it. It was great because I was in a Title I school, and so it's free, and I like free. As a counselor, as an educator, it's just hard, to pay for everything. So we had a Cyber Patriots team. It was my first time, and at first I was like, I want us to score, but then it's like I didn't care about scoring. It was about just exposure and connecting with my students. I had at least one student who was in a group home, and group home students, they get a real bad rap. And so this student was like, hey, this team feels like a family. And for me as a counselor, that was great. He's not only getting this information about tech, but he's finding a place of his own. And I celebrated everything. I mean, if we opened up a program, it was a win, and to me, that was a lot of fun. And then once I started doing that, I realized that I can be transparent with my students and say, hey, we need to do this together. I'm not a super expert. And it became a journey for all of us. And we became a family. And, scores didn't matter. It was just getting in there and playing with it.
That's awesome. Allie, talk about.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Again, you talked about some ways that things changed for you after 2016.
Yeah, so for me, what really stood out to me was kind of the unintentional and sometimes intentional gatekeeping that's happening in the world of computer sciences. And it just, before I went, I always kind of pictured computer sciences and like IT and all of that technical and cybersecurity as this career field that was very narrow and very specific, and it was only for a very certain amount of, like a small amount of people, and that it wasn't something that was really broad and available to a lot of different people. And then it just completely opened my mind to, it's not like that. It doesn't take like a super genius to do this stuff. It takes a lot of the skills that we're trying to instill in our students anyway, like all of those problem solving skills and collaboration. And, there's so many real world, like skills and characteristics that we're trying to get our students to have. And through computer science, we can teach them those things. And so then realizing that it's not something for an elite or small specific few, it's something that can be for everyone, but then looking at the actual population that is doing these jobs and those disparities there, that as a counselor, like we're trying to eliminate those barriers and create equity for all of our students, that this is an area where, if we focus on this one specific area, we can really kill two birds with one stone in promoting this wonderful career and also trying to create equity. And it's led me in the Career and Technology Academy to have some really interesting conversations about equity and privilege, and sitting down with our a group of IT students, and the majority of the room was white males. There was some diversity there. There was no female students. And I sat down with them one day and asked them, do you feel like you have equity? And we talked about what equity was. So they had an understanding of it, basic understanding. Like, do you feel you have equity, in your specific program in IT? And they're like, oh yeah, it's great. We're totally equitable. And I was like, really? Like, who's missing from this room right now? And they're all like, oh, well, there's no girls in here. And they're like, but that's probably just because like they don't really want to do this and their brains work differently. And, you know, this isn't really something that girls want to do. And some even went so far as to say they didn't think it was fair that there was a girls who code club and they couldn't attend the girls who code club. And so it's just really interesting how we still have these very like deep-seated beliefs about what it means to be involved in computer science and what that equity looks like, and how even if you're not actively working to keep people out of this world, you are. And we need to be actively working to make sure that we are opening those doors, because there's these incredible opportunities that really should be accessible to everyone, and they're just not.
I hear a few different things being said. I hear passion for our students. I hear equity. I hear collaboration. These core school counseling skills. How have you found to integrate CS for all of your counseling program?
Well, my program is unique in that, you know, I have a rotating group of students. The students that I have changes every 45 days. And so I use a lot of the hands-on tools with those students. I use like the Google Cardboard, or using the code.org, or the CS First, just to get them interested about something, because so many of my students that I work with, they have a really hard time picturing anything for their future, or they maybe haven't even traveled anywhere outside of, you know, these couple of counties that they live in. And so just kind of trying to create that exposure, and giving them an opportunity to try it. But that's with a very small group of students. And then with the other students that I work with in the Career and Technology Academy, talking to them about how even if they're working in construction, you know, there's still things that they can get out of like computer sciences, and how it's going to influence every single one of the careers that we have, whether it's cosmetology, whether it's Academy of Health Professions, whether it's welding, you know, that it can be involved in every single one of their programs. And then, you know, because I do have the luxury of having a smaller caseload, unfortunately, all the rest of the counselors that work in the county have to hear from me all the time, because literally every time we have an all counselors meeting, I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing about computer science? What resources can I give you? Let's make sure that we're talking about this. So even though I only impact a very small group of students, I'm making sure that all the rest of my counselors are getting bombarded happily, friendly, nicely with information every chance I get.
Cool. Just for anyone else on the line, what are some, Sean, I'd like to hear your thoughts too. Sorry, fast forwarding.
Yeah, so I work with my students, and we're going to have a virtual, we're bringing in a program, a grant that's been brought in, where they'll be able to do some virtual tours of some colleges, which is really great.
What platform are you using?
That will be, it's called virtual. I have to find out the specific platform. I just have the website, and I'll look it up for you and let you know.
If you email it to Dana or me, we'll add it to our exit notes.
Okay. All right. And so really, I'm pushing whenever I talk to our counselors. Hey, you can integrate technology, the Google Cardboards, and they really enjoy it. So I share that with them as well. So it's been a slow pace for me right now, just really getting into the groove with this new environment. I'm at a new school, but previously some things that I did with some of my students and with my counselors, they realized that I was they thought I was like a guru or something. Because once you get started with computer science, you're kind of like the person they want to go to and talk to. So they asked me to give some presentations, or I would talk to our teachers about it. We had a magnet night at our computer science magnet. And so that's when we showcase all of our different programs, and then just encourage our teachers to really get involved. And they find out that they like it, that they may have a knack in computer science, which then carries over with our students. So that's been really rewarding for me.
What Can you guys share ways that, or if you have any advice about collaboration with others besides, I think you've touched base with some other counselors, but how about with others, administration, teachers on this topic?
If I could jump in, for me, the big thing for collaboration is really just talking with every single person who will listen to me, and like taking anytime anybody asks me for my opinion on something, just speaking up whether they want it or not. I think I'm fortunate being located in CTA, but recently they had a survey go out talking about what further programs would you like to see in CTA? And I was like, oh, let me tell you what programs I would like to see at the Career and Technology Academy. And I wrote like this whole manifesto with like statistics from code.org about the state of Maryland. My principal came back to me. I didn't realize my name was attached to the survey. I thought I was sending it anonymously and that it was going directly to her. And she's like, you are super passionate about this. I like it. And she's like, she's like, well, just so you know, like we have this computer science program, but like people realize that it doesn't exist, or that it's a greater part of CTE, but we're trying to get more counselor involvement. Can we get you on like the panel, like when we're having this next discussion about how we can better involve school counselors? I didn't even know that panel or that group existed. But I've kind of grown to have this reputation in my county as like the computer science person and like the techie counselor. And so just I don't know, that's just kind of like my personal branding. And so branding yourself and making sure, adding a tagline to your signature line, whatever you can do to make sure that everybody knows that you're the person, and talking to the people who matter in that sense. But also like it makes a huge difference whether those people that you're trying to collaborate with are looking at school counselors as people who are worthy of collaboration. And I'm really fortunate that my principal is really a champion for school counselors, and really cares about bringing us into the fold. And I don't know that that's true for everyone, but I think that if you keep putting yourself out there and you keep talking about it and you keep reaching out to the computer science teachers or the chairs over the computer science program and you keep talking with them, that someone will be receptive, and just keep putting it out there that you're willing and that you really want to help.
Awesome. How about for you, Sean?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on that, every year at the beginning of the year, they would allow me to give a presentation about computer science, and I would use the information that I would receive from C4C in that presentation. And it's kind of like an eye opener, even for seasoned teachers that come in to the school. It's like, wow, okay, we really need to focus on this, or at least maybe shift our thinking to help our students. So that brings me a lot of joy when you bring in those new teachers. Collaboration is just really encouraging the teachers to explore it. Hey, you have some downtime, why not go to code.org? And just keep that in the forefront of their minds, just reminding them constantly of that and letting them know that you're available and that this is a journey. Even though they may consider me like the guru, I still make sure I let them know that I'm still learning and growing, because then you don't want them to feel kind of intimidated by it. So I let them know, hey, I don't know, let's find out together. And they kind of like that. And it just kind of happens that people will start to just call on you and say, hey, how do I start this program? Or where do I start? Or I'm afraid of this. And, you just really become that encourager in the school and say, hey, let's go for it. And the teachers really kind of will engage you, and you kind of become a magnet as far as computer science goes. It's not that you're a super expert, it's just that you become that magnet, which is great because then they'll start sending students your way. You start hearing about what they're doing in the school and how you can add to that as a C4C person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. We really appreciate your time hanging out with us tonight and sharing your wisdom from other states, and just a great chance to hear about the connections that are happening all over the place. You know, I think, Allie, like you said, Pennsylvania, in terms of looking great on paper, like Pennsylvania is pouring a lot of money into computer science education, and how, you know, what the counselor role is. I think we all are looking forward to how can we make sure we're shaping that to be equitable in our own schools and across the state. So I really appreciate the stories that you've shared about what's going on for you. And we look forward to collaborating with you again in the future.
Thanks so much for having us. I love being here.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night, everyone.
You guys were fantastic.
Thank you. Bye.